Hi, my name is Troels, and in this video we're going to take a deep look at Anthology Strings ensembles. As you may know, Anthology Strings actually comes with three different types of sections. You have both solo strings, you have Divisi or chamber strings, and then you also have full ensemble strings. And the concept is the same for all of them. When you have the solo strings, you have both a solo bass, solo cello, solo viola, and solo violin. When you work with the chamber or Divisi strings, you have both small section of basses, the same for cellos, violas, and violins. And when it comes to the full ensembles, you also have full ensemble bass section, cellos, violas, and violins. And the great thing is that you can actually unload and load things here. For the predominant part of this video, I'm going to be loading all the sections, but it's actually great to have a section building capability because you can essentially just load or unload your sections like this. Let's say you only need the violins or you only need a combination of violas and violins, then that's the way it's going to work. But I'll demonstrate that in great detail in the video. Before we get started, let me just give you a quick glance of the user interface and how incredibly intuitive it is to use. It's been taking us quite a while to figure out a layout that can deal with something as complicated as orchestral strings, but really work right off the bat as well. And it all starts with this magical browser here. As you can see, we actually have all the articulations loaded here, both sustains, different types of legato, arc, spiccato, and all that. And you can click on them here. And if you double click on anything, you get access to the browser. And let's say in this case, I want Bartok strings, for example. I just double click on it and the articulation is loaded. And as you can see, everything here is assigned to your key switches. You can also see that down here. So this is a mega patch. It both has sustains, legatos, arcs, spiccato, feathered, Bartok, and so forth. But it's just to show you how quickly it actually is to load an articulation. You just double click, load on it, and then it's done. So you can really build advanced patches in real time. And I'm demonstrating that in some of the other videos we have for Anthology. Down here you have sort of a master control group. This one actually changes depending on what you're choosing. So for arcs here, for example, you can control the speed of the arcs, but for legato here you can control vibrato, legato volume, also speed, and a variety of other things. Down here you got convolutions. You can actually set a different type of reverb to the strings if you want. You can also choose the three microphone positions, and then we have an equalizer. And here on our effects page you have access to our chaos effects if you want to get more sound designy. And there's two more things I just want to show you very quickly here. If you click on the question mark up here, you get access to an information page, and this is awesome. You can see what CCs everything is assigned to and the sort of overall layout and how it works. And you can always change these things. Let's say you want to control the release tails. You just right click on any of these guys here and you move your controller, and then you can assign them to whatever CC you want. You can also move key switches around by clicking on this guy here. It actually allows you to move the key switches around down here if that's your thing. You can also just drag up here if you want to do the same thing. And last but not least, we have our section mixer here, which I demonstrated in the beginning. I'm just going to be playing with the sustains right now. And as you can see, I've only loaded the cellos and the basses. The violas and strings here are unloaded. And you can actually also control the pan and the stereo width and the volume for each of these sections. But it's just to show you that you can limit the section size of the ensembles if you want. So in this case, we're just going to be listening to the sustains for basses and cellos. And as you can hear, there was a lot of dynamic shifts and expression in the strings. That's essentially just me using either my mod wheel or my CC1 and CC11 controllers on dynamics and expression. It's really, really awesome. And it's one of the things that's unique to Anthology is that we reprogrammed all the velocity curves. So it responds rather differently than your normal strings, and very, very intuitive. As you can see here, super easy to express something as redundant as sustains actually, which tends to sound somewhat static when they're used in a sort of normal fashion. But with Anthology here, you can really, really use the sustains in a very expressive fashion and often actually cover for your legatos. You don't always need to go in and do legatos. Let me give you another example here also of the sustains. In this case here, I've actually done the opposite. So I've only chosen the violas and the violins here instead of the cellos and the basses, which have been unloaded. And the great thing about the section mixer as well is that once you load an instrument here, in this case the violas and violins, they're loaded for all the articulations in here, so you don't need to think about that. It's all done. It's right here in the key switches, however you want to assign it to whatever CC you want. And let's say that, oh, well, I actually needed cellos for this one. Boom, you're done. And this is a real-time video, so you can see I just loaded the cellos, so the sustains, legato, everything is laid out. So for a lot of people that really need to write fast with strings, you don't necessarily want to sit with a variety of patches. This one, everything is loaded. So right now we're playing both violins, violas, and cellos together. Let's just unload the cellos here to show how quickly it is. And bam, we're back here just with violins and violas. And let's listen to their sustains. Another awesome thing about Anthology, and particularly Ensembles here, is all the materials we also have for muted strings or Sordino strings. So right now, for example, I've selected my sustains mute. You can see all the Sordino or muted articulations down here. We have sustains muted, we got legato muted, we also have arcs that are muted, and we have feathered spiccato muted as well, which are awesome. And I'll demonstrate all of them in the video here as well. But let's listen just a little bit to the whole section here. In this case, I've loaded all four, so basses, cellos, violas, and violins here for all the articulations, but we're just going to be listening right now to the Sordino mutes for all of the four string sections in the ensemble. I think they're so beautiful. They have such a silky quality to them. And as you can see here again, this is just me playing a sustain patch. There's no legato, whatever. But because we have these new velocity curves, just using something as basic as your mod wheel really allows you to do more emotional expressions through the dynamics here. It's just super, super smooth. Let me play just another thing here with the beautiful Sordinos. And the Sordinos are so beautiful down in pianissimo. They have that very, very airy, silky quality to them. Really, really gorgeous. And as you can notice as well, for the most part in this demo, I'm using the closed microphones here. One of the beautiful things about our recording techniques for Adagio and Agitato, which is really what Anthology is based on, is that we managed to get very, very close mics. You see a lot of orchestral libraries in the market today that are sort of baptized in reverb. And we surely have that if you start combining different mics, how far or mixed. But the close here is very, very intimate. And particularly on the Divisi strings, we have a whole other video where I'm demonstrating them. They're absolutely beautiful. And I think the quality of the Sordinos really come through here on the close mics as well. It's actually funny, I'm thinking about Sordinos. If you guys ever use Skype and you write in Sordinos, you're going to get sardines instead. So just remember that. We actually had a session where I was communicating with the conductor and I kept on writing sardines and he was like, what the? Anyway, let's move on here to the beautiful legatos with the ensembles here. And we actually have three different types of legatos. We have legato 1 and legato 2 for regular strings, and then we also have a beautiful Sordino legato. Let me play here with legato 1. There's a distinct difference between legato 1 and legato 2. Legato 1 is derived from our agitato library. It's more of a Williamsy soaring type of legato, and legato 2 is a little more pointy from the Adagio library as well. Very, very different qualities in them. And obviously these guys are also layered. So when you play soft, you can do your slur. When you play hotter, you can do more fast type of stuff. You can also control stuff like the legato speed, and you also have full vibrato control as well. But let me give you a couple of different examples here. For this particular patch, you can see also the memory footprint is rather big. We have all four string sections loaded here. And as you can see, there's a variety of articulations loaded here. But in this case, I'm only playing with legato 1. So it's very nimble. You can actually play really fast passages with it too. But you know, there's been a lot of attempts to do, and we have it as well in our arpeggio library, to do very fast legatos. And if you ever want to play really fast, you can always turn the speed control up here. But it's not just playing fast, it's also that it needs to sound real. I think a lot of people have focused too much on just making things that can play fast, but it sounds MIDI. Here, you can really hear the transitions. And obviously that also goes for slower playing styles. And another beautiful aspect to the legatos here is not only that you can control the dynamics, the expression, and the speed of the legato, but you can also control the intensity of vibrato. Let me demonstrate. And I just love how acrobatic it is. Let me show you one more thing here. And you know, when I say acrobatic, it's not just because you can express yourself, you can play fast, slow, we got velocity-based legato, but it's actually also that, in this case, as you can hear, it's across the entire range of the strings. So both the basses, cellos, violas, violins, all interconnected here, all the legatos overlapping. Really, really beautiful. But let me also give you just another glimpse here on the vibrato function and focus a little more on that, because it's really cool what you can do in terms of sort of expressing yourself on top of the dynamics and expression, but utilizing vibrato to intensify the emotional impact. And it's just so practical to have all the ensembles aligned. Obviously you can hear, particularly once you get down to the deep notes here, that only the basses are covering that very low end. But it's incredibly easy and nimble and fast to use because everything is laid out. And again, you want to unload something, done. Here we are. You only have your violas and violins right now. Let me move on here and also demonstrate you Legato 2, which is derived from Adagio, whereas Legato 1 was from Agitato. So this has a bit more of a wooden quality to it. In some ways, it's a little more emotional than the first one. Check it out and you'll see what I mean. It's better for a tiny bit slower passages in my opinion, whereas the first one is great for really fast stuff, but there's a different emotional intention in Legato 2 here. And of course, we also have our beautiful Sordino legato. And again, if you ever want to choose an articulation, just double click on it here. In this case, we got legato muted and you're set. And while you do find more of a shiny brightness to the normal legatos, I actually think the Sordinos here can also have that soaring quality to them, but with an element of sadness that you won't find in your traditional legatos. And let me also mention, for our philosophy, the way Colin and I record things, all our Sordinos are actual Sordinos. In most other libraries, you'll see sort of a combination of EQs and convolutions. We record Sordinos with Sordinos on, and it's something we've been obsessing about because there is a notable difference. The whole instrument resonates different. It's not just something you can sort of do as an afterthought with EQ and convolutions, and it actually shows here when you play the muted here. So I listen for that sort of more emotional, perhaps a little darker quality, but still with a soaring, beautiful, emotional intention. And very nimble and responsive too. These are not just for slow playing. I think Sordino sort of lends itself to that sometimes. Another great trick when you use Sordinos also is to sometimes mix it together with traditional non-Sordino strings. We've gotten some questions with regard to Thomas Neumann and that sort of type of sound, and often that's a combination of either using Sordino completely, but also sometimes having some of the strings without Sordinos and some of them with. You can sort of dial in the quality of the strings you want that way, and obviously Anthology offers you that as well. We also have these beautiful arcs, and I actually have a whole other video where I'm really demonstrating them in great lengths, but let me just show a little bit about what you can do with them. And one of the beautiful things about our new arcs here is that in Adagio alone we had over 120 arcs, or dynamic bowings as they're called, but for Anthology here we reprogrammed them into just a couple of patches, and this is our master patch called Arc Control. You can see it right here as well. And the arc control allows you to control the speed. We actually have 127 different speeds of the arcs. So let me just show you a couple of examples using the arcs here. And again, really watch our video where I'm going into great lengths in terms of all the different things you can do with arc control. It's a very, very deep system we've created. Very, very intuitive and super easy to use. It just works right on the keys. So that was an example of the arcs with a very short speed. Let me play you something in the opposite side of the spectrum. So I'm going to turn the speed knob all the way up here. So they're going to be very long now, and they have more expressive quality. And they're actually also velocity based. It's not just that you can control the speed of the arcs, but it's also when you play a soft velocity, they're very mellow. And when you play harder velocity, they get stronger. So you have the ability to control both the time of the arcs, how long they are, and also the velocity, the sort of emotional intention in the arc. And one of the absolute most beautiful aspect of Anthology, and that's really been taking us a long time to get together, is that you have the section mixer here. And obviously I'm playing the arcs right now across basses, cellos, and violas and violins here, but the library is symmetrical, meaning that whenever you load an articulation, you can be sure that no matter how you combine things here in the section mixer, let's say you want to do an awkward section here between basses and violins, the arcs are going to be completely symmetrical between those. And when we load all four here, they're also symmetrical. And that goes for all articulations in the library. So it's easy for you as an end user, and it's been absolutely a headache for us to create that symmetry behind the scenes so everything just works. No matter what you load, it's all laid out. So whether you just want to do your violins or a whole ensemble, which I'm doing right now with the arcs, it just works. Let me also demonstrate the Sordino arcs. And another beautiful aspect to the library is that it's not just that we have arcs for the normal string sections, we also have arcs both with arc control and long arcs here for the Sordino strings. Let me just show them quickly. And as you can see here, the speed is sort of short, so this is just an example of playing them sort of with a more short arc. But let's move on here and show you another part of the full ensemble. Again, we got basses, cellos, violas, and violins loaded here. And let's listen a little bit to our tremolos. And you can hear it here. I like to use tremolos sometimes for measured tremolos as well. Another great trick is also to use a short note behind, so you get more of a definition on the initial one. So for example, you could load another patch here and just have the spiccato feather combined with the tremolo. It's just a great trick. We also have trills in Anthology. We have both half steps and whole steps. You can see them in here as well. So you got the minor second here and the major second. And let me just play with the minor second here. You can actually do some eerie stuff with the trills. Obviously, you can use them in conjunction with legato or normal sustains, but I actually like to use them for cluster stuff as well. A word of warning, by the way, if you ever do sample sessions, be careful recording trills. This is the most painful one because they have to move their fingers, and normally they'll do that like a couple times in an orchestral piece, but this is like, you know, solid 45 minutes just sitting. Let me also show them for the whole notes here, a little more pleasantly sounding when you use them the right way. It's like total fairy world. Another adventurous part of the library is also our short notes. Let me just click up here and show you. So if you look here, we just went through the sustains, the legatos, tremolos, but we also have both spiccato feathered, spiccato tapped, staccato, maccato, pizzicato, bartok, and then we also have sordinoed feathered spiccato. Let me just demonstrate them here, starting with the spiccato feathered for the entire section here. You can see them all loaded. And you may not be used to having different options for spiccato, but there are actually different bow techniques for spiccato. It's not just that it's necessarily a bouncing, feathery kind of stroke. You can also have a more tapped fashion, a little more in a ricochet style. Let me just demonstrate them here. So it's really great for triplets where you need more of the da-da-da-da-da-da. Let me just play the same thing here again with the spiccato feather so you can hear the difference between the tap that I just played and the feather. So it sort of depends on the sound that you're looking for. The tapped here, I would use them more for hybrid modern orchestral music. They're a little more defined in their note, a little more precise. They kind of sit a little more clear in the mix. With the feathered spiccato here, you can hear that initial stroke. And one of the beautiful aspects, and this goes all the way back to Adagio and Agitato, is that normally a lot of people will cut out the initial stroke. Obviously, when you have an ensemble of 11 violins, for example, the stroke is not going to be the same time. So when people do their edits, they'll chop the sound a little further in. We actually like to retain that initial bow stroke, which means that it's not always the very, very tightest sample. But if you want to make it tighter and you don't want that initial beautiful little stroke of the bow, you can actually just take the speed knob up here and move it in. And if you imagine we have a sample here in a horizontal fashion, when you move the speed knob here, you just go a little further into the sample using sample offset methods. But I actually prefer to have it down here. I like that initial stroke, even if it's a little imprecise in your sequencer. It gives a little more life to your samples. And be careful over quantizing your spiccatos. A lot of people sort of make them so stiff sounding that they end up sounding like MIDI strings, but they really don't have to. So use your quantizer in a somewhat loose fashion. Obviously these are capable of sounding incredibly tight if you want them to, but retain a little bit of that natural acoustic property of imperfection. Let me also show you here the staccato notes. Obviously, these are obviously great for a little more defined, slow style kind of playing. They're not super long, and again, you can also control the speeds of the staccatos here, but we'll listen to them with their initial beautiful bow stroke. Let me also demonstrate the cute little pizzicatos here. This is the most challenging articulation to record with an orchestra because most people don't want to damage their instrument, and Bartók is a little bit hard on the instrument, but we got it here. And of course, again, for the entire example here, if you want to do that, listen to it quickly. Let me also just to wrap it up here, show you our feathered spiccato muted. So this is the entire ensemble again loaded here, and they're going to be playing the short spiccato notes, but this time with mutes on. They're absolutely beautiful. And as you can hear, they're very, very velocity adjusted as well. And one of the concepts, and this goes across the entire anthology, I know I've spoken about it before, but it's an important point, is that this library was reprogrammed with everything we've learned over the last 5 years, meaning that we have completely new velocity curves, we have new legato scripts, everything is really done from scratch. So it's incredibly easy right now to sit on the keys here and this is all just me playing here, there's no quantization or whatever, but you can really express yourself through the short notes from soft to hard. It just works right on the keys, and that's exactly where it's supposed to be. But let me just play something a little faster and acrobatic nimble here, so you can see how you can almost using for sort of run building or very, very quick patterns. And just to compare our muted spiccatos with our normal ones here, let me just play the same thing again here, but using the normal unmuted spiccato feather. And while we're at it, let me also do it here with the spiccato tab as well. And that's how quickly you do it. This is all real time. Spiccato tab loaded, done. And I actually think I prefer this particular playing style with the feathered muted. And that's the beautiful thing about Anthology here. It's not just that you have, all the sections loaded here and you can unload them and all that stuff, but you also have 3 different types of spiccato, for example. So feathered, tapped, and there's Sordino here as well. Let me wrap the video up here. I'll just play a little more here with the muted Sordinos, and I want to thank you for watching this video. I really encourage you to watch our other Anthology videos. We have one where Colin's demonstrating the legato. We have another one where I'm demonstrating the beautiful Divisi or chamber section strings. We also have a video demonstrating the solo strings in Anthology. We also have another video, as I mentioned, with the arcs as well. There's a lot of content in this library. It's over 66,000 samples that we polished to perfection. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and let's just wrap it up here with a feathered spiccato for Sordino ensemble strings. You can see we have all the guys loaded here. Thanks for watching.